What's up, people? I'm Wale Ogunleye, head of sports and entertainment at UBS. But before that, I spent 11 years in the NFL tackling quarterbacks. Today, I have the privilege of helping hundreds of athletes and entertainers grow their businesses and investment portfolios. Welcome to Level Up, where we explore different financial literacy topics to equip you with the knowledge you need to be financially fit. Let's get started. On today's episode of Level Up, we'll cover preparing for financial emergencies. Like my old coach used to tell me, failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
So I moved about a year ago and definitely had some expenses that were not budgeted for and were over budget. So I would say that was a bit of a financial emergency. Had to dip into my savings and definitely cover some upfront costs and some moving costs, which I didn't project initially.
On our season finale of Level Up, Preparing for Financial Emergencies, we are honored to have Adrianna Franch share her insights.
And Franch again with the answer. 2 saves by the veteran.
Adrianna Franch is a professional goalkeeper for the U.S. women's national soccer team.
When have you run into a financial emergency?
Early on in my career, I didn't really know what a financial emergency or emergency fund really was, and so I actually had to educate myself on that. We were living paycheck to paycheck because we were only making, well, the minimum at the time was like $6,000 for 6 months, and then you were on your own for the rest of the 6 months. So really living paycheck to paycheck, so struggled with actually figuring out ways to save it within that way. So as I continued to learn and educate myself, I started to develop what that meant to have not only a savings, but an emergency fund.
As a professional athlete, you'll tend to see that people within your family or friends, their lack of planning becomes your emergency. So I planned for that. I planned for the leak in my roof. I planned for the broken furnace.
Car breaks down, flat tire. Luckily, I had some family that was able to help during that time, but that was a moment that I really had to understand what emergency fund actually was.
I think the best way to prepare for a financial emergency is to continue to contribute to your savings. Like instances like this, I had to take a little bit out, but continuing to add to that monthly or yearly, whatever your goals are, to make sure you have that emergency fund.
To dig a little deeper, let's hear from one of our advisors at UBS, Wendy Holmes.
My name is Wendy Holmes, and I'm a financial advisor. We want to talk a little bit about why it is so important to have an emergency fund. First off, an emergency fund is money set aside to cover unexpected expenses, such as medical bills or car repairs. Everyone's emergency fund is going to look different based on their needs and annual income. The ideal starter amount is $500 to $1,000. From there, you will want to save 6 to 12 months worth of living expenses based off of your lifestyle.
Wale, how did you start your emergency fund when you were starting out?
Because athletes' careers are so short, early on in my career, I made sure that I set aside a specific amount of money for an emergency. I called it a rainy day. That is how I started my basis of always saving for something that was unforeseen, but knowing was going to come.
Once I started to understand what it was, I started to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and understanding where my money was going to on a regular basis. And as soon as I started to understand that, I could potentially pull something from one aspect of like a want and versus a need. And some of my wants I could pull back a little bit and set that money aside actually for the emergency fund. But at the same time, you have to figure out what works for your finances, because it can be as simple as $1 to start. Because when you think about trying to put in so much so early, it can be almost daunting, right? And actually stop you from actually fulfilling what you're trying to accomplish. So starting small is what I did first. and then it started to grow over time.
I do now have an emergency fund for instances like this, or after COVID, if I got laid off and had to dip into this emergency fund. That's now why I use that.
Did you know that there are simple steps you can take to help you build and maintain your emergency fund? Open your emergency fund with a bank other than the one you use for checking, so that it's harder for you to tap for quick cash. Your emergency account should be completely separate from other savings to help you avoid spending it on non-emergencies. Set up direct deposit to your emergency account so that you can make funding it a priority. Start small, increase the amount over time. Life can be unpredictable. If you don't have the money on hand to cover unexpected costs, even a common emergency can create financial distress. A great way to start funding it is with something like a tax refund, bonus at work, or even a summer job. Replace any money you've drawn from your emergency fund as soon as you can, but please remember, try not to draw from it.
My favorite part of the show. Let's head to the street for the question of the day.
Wale, what's considered an emergency fund versus something you're just saving for?
Emergencies are always unexpected, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't plan for them. You should plan for medical bills, maybe a car accident, or even a broken furnace in your home. But the things that should be paid from your savings and not your emergency funds are vacations, engagement rings, or maybe a new car. On this episode of Level Up, we discuss preparing for financial emergencies. And no matter your pay grade or your income, it's imperative that you prepare for unforeseen emergencies that may come your way. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.